Hello, Peri Posse, and Make More Love, Not War. Today is a really special episode because it's not only for our female listeners at Peri Posse, but this is also for our couples at Make More Love, Not War, because we're speaking to Julie Parana. She is an occupational therapist. She's certified in women's health, and she's a menopause coach. And the reason that I reached out to her is because I heard from another professional in the arena that she works a lot with couples on how to navigate perimenopause and menopause together. So, thank you so much for being here, Julie. Really appreciate you. And please tell us anything you'd like the audience to know about you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. Like you said, I am a menopause coach. I actually got into this work after I navigated early menopause myself. I was postmenopausal at 42, and I am a healthcare professional. My background is in occupational therapy, but I knew absolutely nothing about menopause. I really had to learn everything about it in order to help myself. I found out that most doctors don't know anything about menopause either. And I was, not really supported by my medical team. Going through menopause a decade early had, significant health implications for me. It increased my risk of cardiovascular disease, of diabetes, of dementia, osteoporosis. None of that was explained to me. And so after doing a ton of research and studying about menopause in order to help myself, I decided that, if I knew nothing about this and I'm a healthcare professional, most women don't know anything about it either. And so I really wanted to bridge that gap. And as an occupational therapist, I've helped people manage their health conditions my entire career. That's what I do. So it just seemed like a natural fit that I could also do this with menopause.
I love that. And also, as an occupational therapist, I have questions for you, certainly
Sure.
about how menopause and perimenopause impacts our central nervous system and impacts all of the sensory sensitivities that people have. I mean, especially neurodivergent, neurotypical, whatever, we all have sensory stuff. And I will say that mine has gotten a lot worse during perimenopause. I mean, it will just sometimes I'll be good, and then sometimes I'm like, Jeff, I need you to turn the volume down to 10. And he's like, I can't hear the TV, but I can't handle the noise, like to an extent that it never was like that for me before. So, yeah, I'm really interested in that part too.
Yeah, you're not alone
Um,
in that. Even women who aren't neurodivergent struggle with that or will start to notice the sensory overload and overwhelm. And it's just because these hormones are such critical messengers for so many things. We have hormone receptors all over our brains. And so those wires get crossed, the messages kind of get missent, and your body is interpreting things at a much higher level than they're really happening. So, like the volume for you mentioned can seem like it's so loud, or this is often when women are like, "Oh my God, can you please stop breathing near me? I don't want to hear you chew anymore." They start to get like super annoyed by bodily function sounds.
mhm.
And that's extremely common.
Yeah, and so I mean, how do people navigate this together? People that you've worked with, and I mean, because I know for me it's very cyclical. The first half of my cycle when my estrogen's rising and then peaking, and then so I have the natural estrogen that's still moving around in my body, and then I personally am using the patch and I take micronized progesterone, so that's what I'm doing right now. But so anyway, so I have like my own chaos going on inside me, and then I have the other stuff that's trying to help me. But and the second part of the cycle, like I just get a crash, and it's just like dizziness, nausea, lack of tolerance for everything, just getting reactive. Like just earlier today, Jeff asked me, he said, and he was trying to be really good about it because he was trying to tell me like that he was trying to give me a heads up. He's like, I need you to look at these photographs because we're trying to choose some pictures of our daughter to whatever to get sent to us. And I just got really reactive. I was like, I can't do that right now. And then I told him all the things I had to do. And, instead of just being able to really just think about his question and answer what he was asking. And, so stuff like that happens all the time for us now when it wasn't so much. And then it's like, for him, it's like, what the heck?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you did a good thing about at least being able to communicate that you just didn't have the bandwidth to deal with it right in that moment. Because sometimes that's what we just need to be honest about that. Like, I can't really make this decision right now, or I can't really talk about this right now. I think it's great that you're replacing your hormones because that's a great first step to try to help balance out some of this chaos. Although even in perimenopause, even if you're replacing your hormones, that there's still a lot of your own hormones are still rising and falling so much that it doesn't always, fix everything, right?
Definitely
Um,
does not. No.
yeah, nervous system regulation is really huge. That's something that I really try to work on with all of my clients is really finding ways to calm our nervous systems down. Before going into menopause, I never once thought of nervous system regulation. I honestly thought it was like kind of a woo-woo thing. I would have rolled my eyes if someone suggested it to me. But we don't realize how much our hormones naturally regulate our nervous system for us.
Yes. My
And
gosh.
then when we don't have those hormones operating optimally, all of a sudden, you just totally lose your resilience. And so we really need to be mindful to incorporate daily nervous system regulation practices into our life. And once you get consistent with it, you really see the benefits that it has. And I think it gets a little easier to stick to. It's just making the commitment to do it and prioritizing yourself. Even 15 to 20 minutes a day of practices, breathing exercises, meditation, grounding. One of the things that's helped me significantly is getting back into my circadian rhythm, like making sure I have a very consistent schedule of when I wake up and when I go to bed and getting light in my eyes first thing in the morning. I'm very diligent about doing that. And I know it makes a huge difference for me and for a lot of my clients. So, for most women, that's kind of where I start is with the nervous system regulation piece and the sleep piece. Before we start addressing all the other things, those are the two lifestyle changes that really can help move the needle the most. And then you feel a little bit better. And then you can focus on like your nutrition and your movement and exercise and things like that.
So how do you suggest women talk to their partners about what's going on so that men can understand? Because basically, I mean, maybe you can talk about what the experience is like for you, seeing how I used to be versus how I am now, and wondering what's to come. The ghost of Christmas past, present, and future. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit and maybe see what she might.
Well, uh, the first thing that I notice is that her body, she's losing all the things that she needs to be able to put up with me. That's that's what I'm noticing the most about this. It's like why is everything like how can I possibly be the jerk about every single thing? I mean, I couldn't consciously do that. I couldn't on purposely do it, but I somehow seem to get it done. And just so you know, our daughter is also, so it's just me. We just have one kid, and she's going through puberty. So yes,
Oh,
can I get a
yes.
little bit of like sympathy
That
here?
that is nature's cruel joke. I think that often happens that you have a child going through puberty and you are going through puberty in reverse at the same time. So it's total hormone chaos happening all at once. Um,
Yes.
yes. So of course, the menopause transition impacts our family just as much, right? It's not just the person all these changes are happening to, but everybody else in the household. And I think it's important too, just to know like how menopause, our this stage of life impacts so much more than just our menstrual cycles. It kind of is maddening to me that like the definition of menopause is 12 months without a period because not getting your period is not the problem. That's like the
No.
one good
Yeah.
thing about menopause, it's the fact that we have hormone receptors all over our body and estrogen plays like 400 roles in our body. And so when we lose that, things are going crazy. And as much as it's, not great for the partner, it's not great for us either. No one likes feeling like this. And no one wants to have this, kind of internal turmoil going on all of the time. And so, yes, do sometimes we can take that out on our partners, and that's not ideal. I think it's this a good place to start is for both people to even know what is happening in the menopause transition and to understand it, because men certainly have no clue, but most women have no clue either. Like I said, I didn't know anything about menopause until I went through it. And so I think a lot of the clashing happens when both parties are not understanding the transition at all and why all these changes are happening. So a good place to start is educate yourself. There's a lot of great books. The New Menopause is one of my favorites. Also, Dr. Kelly Casperson has a great book that just came out, The Menopause Moment. I really love that book. And so, for men, if your partner is acting totally like you do not recognize anymore, she might not even realize that all of these symptoms have to do with menopause. And so something you could do is get her a book, or if you don't think it's going to,
And then she'll tell me, thanks for the book. Are you saying there's something wrong with me?
well, I
And
was
then
going
now
to
I have to
say if
read a
it,
book to fix
I,
myself. Do I?
I was going to say if you don't think it's going to land well coming from you, you could enlist a sister, a friend, somebody else, to just say like, hey, listen, I heard this was a great book and it's very helpful. I think part of the problem is that women are needlessly suffering through menopause. There are a lot of things that you can do to feel better, but many women are struggling through it. They're not getting the support they need. They're not getting medical care because most doctors get no training in menopause. And so they may even try to get care from their doctor and their concerns are dismissed. There's still plenty of doctors out there misinforming women, telling them that hormone therapy is dangerous and that they're not candidates. Only 4 to 6% of women are taking hormone therapy, and most women are candidates for it. And so a lot of women are being denied care, and then just suffering through this when there are a lot of things that you can do to feel better. And so if you can help her, your spouse, get to the point where they can, get some access to some help and some education and learn a little bit about what they can do, then, they can start to make some of those lifestyle changes.
I think it's interesting how you say that you didn't know much about menopause because I was literally just a couple days ago I was watching a show. It was like a on a news channel where they have multiple people on the table and they kind of go around and they talk about a subject matter and so they had two women on there and then three guys. So and the something came up about menopause or something and it came around to one of the guys and the first guy and he's like, I don't even know what that is. And then like they kept going around, they kept coming back to like one of the other, and they're kind of joking, like they have literally have never heard this in their life. That's the way they're joking. Like it's a new word that came out of nowhere. And then one of the guys is like, I don't know, after this, I'm gonna have to go look it up. So they're all, and then one of the guys, while they went around, he gets on his phone and he's like, I got it, guys. And he just reads the definition in the most like generic. Apparently, it's blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh, okay. And of course, the ladies are just thinking they're a bunch of idiots. Like, what are you doing?
Right. I mean, I knew technically what menopause was, but beyond hot flashes and night sweats, I really didn't know about all the other symptoms. And brain fog was one of my worst initial symptoms. And, this is a good thing for men to know too. If your spouse is suddenly acting like she has dementia, she probably doesn't have dementia. It's probably menopause. Because I was having horrible word finding problems, memory lapses. I was making some errors at work. I've never done that before. I forgot to show up to an appointment. I've never done that. And I was really convinced I had early onset dementia and that does run in my family. So I started to freak myself out.
Ooh.
And then, then I started to have a bunch of other symptoms. And then sort of the light bulb went off that like, oh, I should probably get my hormones checked. This might be what the problem is. And then, I had like no estrogen. So we found what was going on. But yeah, that's no one teaches us any of this. Somehow we got to this stage of life and it was like this big secret, and probably because of like the shame and the stigma around it, right? It's women are, we don't want to age. This is considered something, like old ladies go through menopause when actually the symptoms can start in your late 30s. So that's kind of a myth that menopause happens to old ladies, but I think most of us, myself included, I was not prepared for this to happen in my 40s by any means. So,
That's because you're not in the fifth grade again, and you all go to the auditorium and you watch a movie, and all those guys were outside playing in the park. I remember that.
right.
So we're
Yeah,
like,
I
I have
think
no idea
it's
what they're watching in there, but whatever. We got a free recess.
Yeah, they did. No one prepared us for this, right? You learn about puberty and you learn about pregnancy, and then you just learn that someday you're not going to get your period anymore, but no one explains this massive shift that can happen and in all the ways that it impacts our bodies. And so, thankfully, our generation, I'm like the cusp of Gen X, millennial, we're talking about it now. It's becoming part of the conversation, and hopefully the women after us are not going to have to suffer like this because they'll know what to expect. And hopefully doctors are going to start to learn a little bit more about this and be more adequately prepared to help women navigate it. Because you don't have to suffer through it. There are definitely things you can do to feel better.
What do you think your clients that when are you do you work also with couples or do you work with men or how does that work for you?
So I mostly work with women, but I do offer, it's called a menopause empowerment session. So that's sort of the first session that I offer, where we go over, the stages of menopause, the symptoms, why we have so many, how our whole body is impacted, the hormonal and non-hormonal treatment options, and then all of the lifestyle changes that can really make the biggest difference. And then just kind of give people sort of next steps and a plan and support them, like where they can get further information, and then they can decide if they want to continue on with one-on-one coaching. Recently, I've had two men find me and book that appointment. And so the
Good for
couple,
them.
yeah, they found me, they booked it.
Love
They
it.
attended the session with their partner, and it was really great because then they both got to hear it all together and learn everything together. And then one guy was really sweet, and he was just saying, my wife puts everybody else first, and I knew she wasn't going to do this. I knew she's struggling and she needs to do something about it, but I knew she wasn't going to book this appointment or even think about like finding it or whatever. And so he took that step for her, which I thought was really nice. She had tried not once but twice to seek care from a doctor, and both doctors dismissed her, told her, there's nothing you can do, menopause is natural, blah blah blah, scared her away from hormones. um, and so she kind of understandably gave up. She was like, okay, I've made two attempts here, and she just sort of like resolved that she's just going to have to suffer through this. And it was really great that her spouse recognized, like, no, she needs to do something about this. And then found me, made the appointment. And so that was great. And now she did sign on for coaching, and we're working together individually now. But the first session was with them together, which I thought was great.
I love that. Well, in those sessions, what do you think men or women want men to know? And then also, do you have, based on that, do you have advice for men of what they can do for themselves to handle this time? Because it's very jarring for both people.
Yes, it's very jarring. And, it's so hard to just say like, hey, don't take this personally. If your spouse is, very short-tempered with you, maybe there's really a lack of intimacy happening now, possibly, libido can be impacted. And that connection can feel difficult or lost for people. And so it is pretty hard to just like say to the guy, like, oh, well, don't take this personally. But I think, once they sort of understand more about why and what's going on, and that this isn't really fun for their partner either, I think that can definitely help. I think supporting your spouse and making some of the lifestyle changes can also be a huge help. So, we really need to prioritize sleep like it's, our number one resource. And so, if you can help your partner with sticking to the consistent sleep schedule and like not having the TV on in the bedroom at night and, things like that that can help her be more well rested, she may be, less irritable and having all these other things if she's able to get better sleep. Help with some of the things around the house. I think it has to be said that a lot of women are carrying a massive mental load. There's a lot of invisible labor that goes on in relationships, and women are often carrying the brunt of that. And they're the ones managing the house, doing most of the childcare, taking care of the elderly parents. They're the ones buying the gifts and planning the parties and making the doctor's appointments and doing all of these things. And then often by midlife, that's when this invisible labor and mental load kind of starts to rear its ugly head, where women can feel undervalued, and maybe a little taken advantage of, and they just don't have the bandwidth to deal with all of that anymore. And so, if you can help balance that out a little bit and start taking on some of those responsibilities, maybe without having to be asked and directed what to do, I think that
When she starts
could help.
noticing this, is this the time I get the book?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. Okay. Okay. Whew.
Did you
But,
hear what she said though?
I don't.
this is also, the fewer fucks to give phenomenon happens in menopause where
Yes, my fucks
est
are just all out.
yes. And so, estrogen is sort of our like keep the peace, people pleasing hormone. And so when we start to lose that, we might be a little bit, we kind of lose the filter a little bit. We might set some stronger boundaries. We might just be able to finally say out loud that I am not going to put up with this stuff. And so it can be like a kind of make or break moment for a lot of relationships, because you kind of have to take a look at where you're at, and is this the how you want your relationship to keep moving forward. Women need to be able to say, like, these are some of the things that I need help with. My resilience is shot. My hormones are leaving the building, and I can't do all this anymore.
Is there a book out with that title? I mean, I'm not even kidding. Is
That
there?
I
long?
don't
I mean, no, the title Losing My Give a Fucks or something
Oh,
like that.
know.
With menopause and premenopause or whatever. And then it talks about like that. Even if it's not a
Someone should
book,
write
it would
it.
be a program. It would be something. Yeah, that's your book right there. You just
Yeah. It is. I mean, it's very true though. And I think, a lot of it has to do with hormones for sure, but I think some of it is just like wisdom and like getting,
mhm.
just aging and understanding, like you just finally get to a place where um, you decide that maybe putting everybody else first isn't the best way to handle life, and that, women really need to prioritize themselves at this stage of life. They need to what we got away with in our 20s and 30s, we're not going to get away with in our 40s, 50s, and beyond. We really need to put ourselves kind of at the top of the list or closer to the top of the list, and take care of our own health if we really want to thrive through this stage of life and beyond.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, in times of stress, I am an overfunctioner. So, there's like two different ways you can handle stress. You can shut down or you can overfunction. So, what I tend to do is, and this just happened with this cycle, is that as my estrogen's rising and all the way through the peak during ovulation, if I'm ovulating, I don't know, but I will I will just slowly increase my functioning and take on all of his stuff. And so, of course, right now it's Christmas time. So I've been doing all of this stuff, and then on December 9th, when I had the post-ovulation estrogen drop, it just all went to hell. And then for me, what I used to, and this cycle has always been the same, but now I get dizzy and nauseous, and I hit this
Mhm.
huge wall where it's like, I actually cannot do things because I'm so nauseous, I'm so dizzy, and it just used to be that I would get irritable. So like I can handle that. But now my body is like, stop, and you need to go back and look about how you were doing too much before. And so it's just this constant reckoning that's happening for me. And so I can imagine for him, it seems like I'm so tolerant and like cool and all of this stuff. And then all of a sudden it drops off a cliff and and I'm like, I can't handle anything. It's all gone to hell. And I mean, it's that dramatic for me now, even with the in the hormone replacement, just because of perimenopause being so up and down. It's just, yeah, it's wild. I mean, it's this level of having to confront all of these things that I was doing that were unhealthy, but definitely societally praised and encouraged before like people pleasing and putting other people's desires before my needs and all of this stuff. Because if I do any of that stuff, I'm going to hit a wall and I'm going to get literally sick. So
Right. It's really hard to unlearn all that.
it
And
really is.
yeah, I do like joke, but it's not really a joke. It's true that I think, even though I went into menopause abruptly and early, I think it was probably easier for me because I don't have children and I'm not married, and I have put myself first. I've always been able to prioritize my health and put myself first. And so as soon as I started having symptoms, I was immediately able to like take action, buckle down, learn about it, do something about it. And I just want women to give themselves permission to do that, even if they are partnered, even if they do have children. You can't take care of everybody else in your life if you're not taking care of yourself. So
What's the light at the end of the tunnel?
there is a light
I
at the
mean,
end of the tunnel. There
yeah.
is.
Okay.
Speaking from someone who is postmenopausal, I do replace my hormones, but the great thing about being postmenopausal is your hormones are stable. So they're not rising and falling all the time. Even pre-menopause, our hormones are very up and down. They're just, in pre-menopause, they're rising and falling in a very predictable 28-day cycle that our body adapts to and recognizes. And then in perimenopause, it's just total hormone chaos. One day your estrogen could be 235, the next day it could be 45. And that's why you have so many symptoms. It's not necessarily how much estrogen's in your body, it's the fact that it's going all over the place with no particular rhyme or reason. The great thing about postmenopause is it's a stable, our hormones are very low, but it's a stable baseline low. And then if you replace them, it's a stable baseline, to where you're managing your symptoms. And so it's really honestly pretty great that you're not riding that roller coaster ride anymore. And even, if you don't replace your hormones post menopause, that happens as well, but you might still suffer with some of the symptoms like hot flashes and night sweats and the joint pain and, the genital urinary symptoms, all of those that, probably aren't going to go away. But I think a lot of that mood instability and things like that does level out because, hormones are finally stable.
Is hormone replacement like the rest of your life kind of thing?
It's going to be for me. I plan to go to the grave with my patch on.
Hmm.
And there's really no reason that you have to stop it unless you develop a new contraindication. So there are very few contraindications to using hormone therapy. If you have a hormone sensitive cancer, you can't use it. If you have active liver disease, if you have undiagnosed vaginal bleeding, you have to figure out what's causing that bleeding before you can start replacing your hormones. And active liver disease. That's really it. If you don't have any of those contraindications, you're very likely a candidate. And as long as you don't develop any of those and the benefits continue to outweigh the risks for you, which for the vast majority of women, the benefits are going to far outweigh any very small risks, you can replace them up until the day you die. That's what I plan to
Yeah.
do. There's so many protective and preventive benefits that hormone therapy offers. In addition to the symptom control, it prevents osteoporosis, which 1 in 2 women are at risk of an osteoporotic fracture in their lifetime. So it significantly reduces your risk of osteoporosis, of heart disease, of diabetes. There's some studies that are suggesting that it can prevent dementia. There's a lot of research being done about that right now. So in addition to the symptoms, which could come back if you stop it, all the protective and preventive benefits are so great that I think really every woman should strongly consider it. Not every woman's going to choose to replace their hormones. And I don't want to give the impression that, if you don't, that you're going to suffer through menopause. There's still plenty you can do, especially with lifestyle. That's what I'm helping women implement are all the lifestyle changes. But I think if it makes good sense for women to learn more about it and consider it as a tool because it is a very effective tool.
What are the ways you can replace it? How does it work? I mean, I've heard about like patches, like what are the different ways that you actually get hormone replacement?
So you can take it transdermally, which is through the skin. So estradiol is the estrogen that you're replacing. And you can use a patch or a gel or a spray, and it will be absorbed through your skin. There's also a vaginal ring that can give systemic hormones if you want to take it vaginally. You can also take it orally. I think oral estrogen kind of gets a bad rap. There is a slight increased risk of blood clot with oral estrogen, which is why most prescribers will start you with transdermal methods because it's slightly safer to take it through your skin. There's no increased risk of blood clot at all if you get your estrogen through your skin. There's a slight increased risk if you take it orally, but it's very low. It's less than the risk of oral birth control. It's significantly less than your risk of blood clot when you were pregnant. So I think a lot of women are afraid of oral estrogen, but if you don't absorb well through your skin, which some women don't, then oral estrogen may be a great option for some women. If you have a uterus and you're taking estrogen, then you also need a progesterone. And so usually that's prescribed by pill. Oral micronized progesterone will be prescribed if you're taking estrogen. Progesterone does not absorb through the skin as well as estrogen does. And so that's why it's taken orally. And then we might as well talk about testosterone because that can often be the missing piece for some women who are replacing their estrogen and progesterone and they still don't quite feel like themselves, especially if libido is still an issue and it's a concerning issue to them. Testosterone is unfortunately not FDA approved for women, but it can be prescribed off label to women. And, women make and need testosterone too. It's pretty maddening that it is not yet approved by the FDA, although it seems promising that they're going to reconsider that soon. But many women find significant benefit for mood, for energy, for confidence, for libido when they replace their testosterone. And that's best done through the skin as well. So, testosterone pellets are not advised. Most menopause experts do not recommend that because that can have a lot of undesired side effects. The dosing is often a little too or very too high for women in some
Yes.
cases. And so testosterone pellets are really not the way to go. I think it's unfortunate because it's so hard to find a prescriber to give you testosterone. Women sort of fall prey to the med spas that are super therapeutically dosing them with these crazy high testosterone doses. The best way to take it is transdermally through the skin, and you just apply a very, very small amount. You apply about 1/10 the dose that would be prescribed to a man.
Yeah, and I personally, it may be because I wasn't didn't have other things balanced or whatever, but I tried testosterone 3 times and it just didn't work for me. I ended up being very irritable and I got super anxious with it. At first, I felt good. And then I started getting irritable and anxious. And I think maybe it just got too high. So I think that's something to really pay attention to. And I asked my provider about it. I want to see what you think about this. And she said that women who naturally produce more testosterone are going to benefit from testosterone more like women who are more athletic growing up, she asked me like, were you athletic? Were you coordinated? Like different things like, and I'm like, no, no, no. Like I read all the time and I like to swim, but I fall all over my own feet. And, and she said that, there are some women who just really super benefit from testosterone and some who don't do great with it. And
Yes.
just to be able to be aware of that too, because I think that women who do great with testosterone are like 100% for everybody having it. And I mean, people are just like that in general. If it's working for you, you want everyone to feel good, you know? So I think that's a good thing to pay attention to as well, and why testosterone may have mixed reviews for people, because some people it is great for, and some people it's not so great for. And so we can just take that with a grain of salt and figure out what's best for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I'm not exactly sure the data on it, but to your point, testosterone does not work for every single woman. Neither does estrogen and progesterone, although I think it
Hmm.
works more for, I think most women can do well on hormone therapy. It is a trial and error process. It often takes a while to find the right dose, the right delivery method, the right combination of hormones. So often I think people give up a little too soon if they start to have side effects instead of working it out with their prescriber, adjusting the dose maybe, or waiting a little while. Anytime that I've gone up on my estrogen patch dose, I will get headaches for about a week or two and some breast tenderness, but then that goes away totally. And then I have zero negative side effects. So sometimes you just need to give your body a little time to adjust and get used to it. If it's lasting weeks and weeks, then, it's probably not great for you. But if you can wait a couple weeks and see if it gets better, often it does. With the testosterone piece, though, it definitely does not work for everybody. And you really just won't know until you try. And I think
Hmm.
for most women, it makes sense to kind of optimize your estrogen, your progesterone, and double down on all the lifestyle pieces. Make sure that, you're optimizing your nutrition, your sleep hygiene, your movement, your nervous system regulation, your stress management, all of those things. And then testosterone can kind of be like the icing on the cake that you can try afterwards and see if that helps move the needle for you. The nice thing about hormone therapy is like there's really no harm to trying it for a little while. And if it doesn't work for you, you can just stop. Nothing bad is going to happen to you if you try it out for a little bit and then you decide that it's not for you. So it definitely makes sense for most women to give it a shot because it really can make a huge difference in your quality of life.
When you were talking about lifestyle, you also mentioned nutrition. So we've talked about sleep and the importance of nervous system regulation. And I'd like to spend a few minutes on nutrition if that's works for you. I just wanted to know what your recommendations are around that.
And does ice cream play a part in this?
It
Yes,
does.
key question.
Unfortunately, blood sugar balance is like the main thing that we
Always.
want to try to work on is optimizing your blood sugar balance. And so, um, that means trying to eat more whole foods, limit your processed foods, and then prioritizing protein and fiber. And I think those are like the main goals with what my clients are working on is really getting our protein intake up because we want to keep our muscle mass. That's another thing that happens in the menopause transition as we drastically start to lose our muscle mass. And muscle is metabolically active, and muscle is what helps your body, process in your blood sugar and all of that. And so we really need to focus on those things. Prioritize protein, prioritize fiber, try to maintain your blood sugar. Not that you can't ever have sweets or anything like that, but, the less sugar, the better, especially with hot flashes too. If you're suffering with hot flashes,
Come on.
sugar can be
Come
a
on,
big
sugar.
trigger for that. It's inflammation, right? It's
I know.
all of that's
It's
inflammatory. And yeah.
it's so
Um,
hard. I mean, I gave up alcohol a few years ago in the beginning,
yes, me
with
too.
perimenopause, and I I just loved wine, like I loved wine culture and pairing wine with food and all of the things. So it's like, okay, can't have alcohol. Now it's like, well, what
No.
about a little treat after dinner? Like, nope, that's not good either.
You can have a little treat after dinner, but should you have like
Yeah.
a giant bowl of ice cream every night after dinner? Probably not. That's not going to be great for your
Yeah.
managing your insulin spikes and your blood sugar levels. But
Yeah. Yeah. I still do have a little treat after dinner, by the way, just so you know. But
yes.
but yes, I
But if
mean,
you're
you have to.
eating really healthy whole foods the whole rest of the day, then
Yeah.
probably, a little like small thing of chocolate, something like that is perfectly fine. But these habits, that's how working with the coach is helpful because, I think a lot of times women try to make too many lifestyle changes at once and then they're not able to stick to it and then they feel like a failure. It's really hard to make lifestyle changes. And so if you can do it gradually, make small changes add up a lot over time and then it gets easier to stick with it. And then, you just have someone that's kind of guiding you and keeping you accountable, giving you a plan to follow. It just makes it a little bit easier.
And someone to yell at. I mean that's the other part about a coach that people don't talk about that much. It's like it's somebody else that they can be like, "Come on, will you push?" It just makes you
No,
feel
my
better.
clients are great. They never yell at me,
Yeah,
nor do I yell at
let's
them.
not put that out there. I mean, maybe you
But
need someone to yell
then
at.
you
Are you
get to come
angry?
back. Then you get to come back as a coach. You go, you can do it. Come on, you can do it. It's
Sometimes people do need tough love. This is true. Um, but for the most part, by the time someone hires a coach, they're pretty motivated and, invested in their health and they want to see the changes. And so, it just takes time. Changes don't happen overnight. You really need to stick with lifestyle changes for a while too. And so that's why they can be hard to stay with because everyone wants immediate gratification, right? But going to the gym twice isn't going to change your body composition. Changing how you eat for a week isn't going to, make a huge impact. It's small changes over time that you can stay consistent with. And then, you look back at yourself 6 months down the line and then you like realize, oh, wow, all these things are getting better. It definitely takes some discipline. It takes some time.
Well, and I think so we're talking about all of the lifestyle changes in the nervous system regulation and and then just also the focus today being on how men cope with their female partners going through this. And I think a lot of this advice could apply to men too, as women are upping their self-care and and men need to do that as well. And being a couples therapist, I see this all the time that, I mean, we as couples co-regulate, but also there is there's a drive for women to regulate their spouses as well. So without knowing, their men have been taken care of by women emotionally for decades, and they didn't really realize it because it was invisible. But now that it's not there, they realize it. And it's like, oh, wow, she's not so kind and she's not noticing that I need milk and going to get it. And like all of these things that we do that whether they see it or not, it's all to their benefit. And I mean, it's good for everybody, right? But like, I mean, we do not care movement, right? I'm just kidding. But I mean, that's part of it, right? I mean, it's not that we don't care. It's just that we don't have the bandwidth to do that anymore. And we can't do that to ourselves anymore. So we have to stop regulating others, put our children first, and then, that's kind of it in ourselves. So I think what happens a lot is that men then they need to regulate themselves more rather than having that happen with their female partner or spouse. And so that I think is jarring for their nervous systems. So, and thinking
Right.
about
And
nervous,
probably no one ever taught them how to do that. They might not even
right.
know where to start with that.
And we're having to learn too here. So like everybody right now is having to learn how to regulate ourselves. And so and then in our situation, our daughter too, being 12 and going through puberty, and she and I are matched up on cycles, by the way. So that's really fun. Fun for you. But, for him, he's got to have other ways to regulate himself because he's not getting his sweet little daughter giving him sweet little hugs anymore. And wife is like, get away from me. Like your voice is too loud. The way that you're walking through the house is bothering me, like everything you do. So, so all of a sudden that can be really jarring and I'm sure it can feel isolating and hurtful and all of those things too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will say there's a couple of resources for guys on this topic. I don't know if you know of Tamsin Fadal. She has the book How to Menopause. On her website, she has a free download. It's called The Men's Guide to Menopause. And I believe Dr. Mary Claire Hairler has something similar on her website, thepauselife.com as well. That just kind of can help men understand the menopause transition a little bit more, gives them a few tips and insights on, how they can support their partner. I think, making small adjustments in your communication style and really just trying to listen to one another and, um, I don't want to say the not take things personally thing again, but if you can just try to understand where this is all coming from and it's not like a personal attack on you necessarily, it's just, hormone chaos wreaking its ugly head. And just asking like, hey, are you okay? Is there something I can do for you?
Yes, I'm okay. No.
Yeah.
But yes, I love that. And thinking also something that I talk about in couples therapy with clients is thinking of something like a third part, like it's a third party, like you said, not taking it personally, because it's a third party in your relationship that's impacting both of you, and you're both trying to deal with it, and you could be a team with it if you can sort of both get over yourself with it and be like, okay, this
Right.
is hard for us to cope with, and we're going to be patient and gentle with each other as much as we can.
And
Yeah.
don't get butt hurt.
And don't get butt hurt.
That's
Yeah.
basically, yeah.
And support each other in those healthy lifestyle habits. I think, that's where you were going with that before, is not only is it good for women to prioritize all those things, but men should be doing that too. And if you can start doing some of those things together, it makes it a lot easier to stick with new healthy habits if you know you have a buddy doing it with you. So if you can both try to work on your nutrition or your movement or take walks together or, you know, just start your day together, you know, that could set both of you up for success.
Yeah, yeah, something I've said to Jeff, and this is something I'm trying to switch, but I think if women had the words for it, they might say it too, but is that my nervous system is seeing you as a threat right now. And if we were joining and doing some of this nervous system regulation or just talking about it in that way, and other couples could do that too, which would help both people, like you were saying,
Hmm.
then it does feel like, okay, we're dealing with this together rather than um, you're trying to hurt me.
Right. Yeah. If you can navigate this together as a team, I think, you know, that's obviously that's ideal. That's
Yeah.
the best case scenario. And just being able to talk about it, I think as long as women can, um, you know, just would try to take the shame and the stigma away from it. I think it's, you know, it's great that you've connected the dots that all of this is related to your hormones. And you know, if other women do that too, and they can just talk about it and not be embarrassed by it. I think even if it's your spouse, sometimes women are still embarrassed to talk about these things. And so, you know, gotta let that go. This is
Yes,
your
it's this.
partner. This is your partner in life. You can't be embarrassed. And it happens to every single woman on the planet who lives long enough. So there's really nothing to be ashamed or embarrassed about because every single one of us is going to go through it.
Yep, yep. If we're lucky enough to, right? And
Right.
yeah, I love you saying that. I think that's really important. This is just us being humans together. I think it would be awesome. I mean, I don't know how much stuff you have on your plate, but I think it would be awesome if you did a master class for men on this, I mean, just like having other guys get to be there and see, because other male clients have asked me, is there a support group for men on this? I mean, because it's like, I know it might be hard to get men to go to such a thing because there's like this,
Yes.
oh, like I can handle this myself thing. But like if other men are going, I just wish that guys had that because I think they could, I mean, just in a self-centered way, feel like they could be better partners to us as women be, if they were able to take care of themselves better through this too.
Right. Yeah. No, that's definitely something to consider. I've done some like workplace trainings and things like that before, and sometimes men do attend that and they are really grateful for the information and you know, they leave saying like, wow, I can't believe that you guys go through all that. I think it helps give a little perspective. You know, when they hear all of the, you know, everything that's happening to us biologically during this stage.
Right?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's really such a joy being a woman, isn't
It is. It
it?
is. I mean, where's the red tent when you need it? I'm just kind of, this is when the island of women could be helpful, but I don't know. I
Right.
mean, um, well, so you've talked a lot about coaching and being a menopause coach, and so I'm sure people who are listening are thinking, I would love to talk to Julie. Where would they find you, to be able to connect with you?
Sure, you can go to my website. I'm themenopauseot.com. I'm also on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. I'm the Menopause OT on all of those platforms as
Okay, awesome.
well.
Thank you so much for your time, Julie. This was very therapeutic. I feel seen.
Yeah. Good. Thank you so
I
much
I
know
for
see.
you
having
feel
me.
seen too.
I see you.
We're all validating. Well, take
Thank you for
care.
having me. You too.
Bye.
Whoops.